The call to be a Christian is first and foremost a call to follow Christ. The call to follow Christ is the call into a whole new kingdom. Even though this is true, as believers, we can still try to hang on to our old kingdom and try to maintain it. There's a diagram I use that really helps us understand this. It's a simple one. You can draw it on a napkin in the middle of any conversation. First, start and draw a circle, and in the middle of that circle, write God's kingdom. This is all about God. This is all about God's story. God's kingdom is designed to bring Him glory and put Him on display. Above this circle that says God's kingdom, who is king over God's kingdom? Well, whenever a pastor asks you a question, about 50% of the time, if you answer Jesus, you're going to be right. So Jesus, as we sing about Him, King Jesus, Jesus is king over God's kingdom. So write Jesus above the circle of God's kingdom. In Christ's kingdom, Christ is king, so we serve Him and His kingdom. It's about His story. Okay, to the side of God's kingdom, draw another circle, and in the middle of that circle, write my kingdom. This is about my story where I am king, and I see that everyone there serves me and my kingdom. Now, who do I believe is king over my kingdom? That would be me. So above that circle, write me. Now, here's the problem. Even as Christians, what we often wrongly believe is that Jesus comes down and joins our kingdom to make it work. So draw a dotted line between Jesus and my kingdom. We even share the gospel this way. We say things like, if your marriage is a mess, you need Jesus. If your kids are out of control, you need Jesus. If your finances are upside down, you need Jesus. Now, with Jesus in my marriage, should that impact how I relate to my spouse? Well, certainly. But to what end? Do I want Jesus in my marriage in the hope then that there's less conflict, better communication, maybe even better intimacy? I'm all for all of that. But there's a bigger reason why Jesus should be in our marriage. It's because we want in our marriage to show Jesus' love and His commitment to His bride, the church. That's what Paul tells us in Ephesians. And we show the rest of the world what it looks like when two selfish people commit their life to Christ and He changes them from the inside out, makes them other-oriented, and truly love each other unconditionally. You see, our marriage then puts God on display. Why do we want Jesus in our parenting? So I have a better chance that my daughter doesn't get pregnant before she's married and my son doesn't get hooked on drugs? Now, I wouldn't wish either of those on anybody, but there's got to be a bigger reason than just that. See, the reason I want Jesus in my parenting is so that we can put Him on display by showing the rest of the world what happens when a family who is committed to each other learns how to live with sin against each other and disappointment and yet stay committed in love to one another. Why do I want Jesus in my finances? So that at the end of the month, I still have extra money left, I've paid all my bills, and now I can buy a few extra toys? No, I want Jesus in my finances so I can be a good steward of what He's entrusted to me, so that I can invest even the money that belongs to Him. I can invest in His kingdom in a way that's going to have eternal impact. See, we wrongly start to believe that being a Christian means Jesus now enters my kingdom to make it work. Well, let me show you how that works. So there's a young gal who's in her 20s, late 20s, in your small group. She has her first child, and she comes to small group tonight just really, really distraught. She just came from a doctor's appointment where she was told that she has an incurable, terminal brain tumor. Okay, what questions are naturally racing through her mind? Why me? Why this? Why now? What did I do wrong? Where's God? Now, those are all normal questions that we would probably ask and grapple with in her situation. But see, here's why that's such a struggle. All of us are living for a story, our story. And in our story, we already have chapters clearly defined of what we expect is going to happen as our story gets lived out. See, in this gal's storyline, she already has a chapter where she's going to see her daughter graduate from high school with honors. She has a chapter in her story where she's going to be there to help her pick out that bridal gown. She has a chapter in her story where she's going to be in the hospital room at the birth of that first grandchild. There's no chapter in the story of her life that includes terminal brain tumor. But guess what? In God's story, there is. See, God's not sitting up there surprised saying, wow, I wasn't expecting this. Now what am I going to do? No, this is part of God's story, and He has placed her in His story to put Him on display, even through the difficulties, the confusions, the crazy things that get thrown at us in life that we're not expecting and that are hard and difficult. See, here's what really happens when we become a believer. Jesus doesn't come down and join our kingdom. What's happened is God has yanked us out of the kingdom of darkness and brought us into the kingdom of His Son. God's placed me in His kingdom to live out His story, to tell His story, to put Him on display, to bring Him glory. That's the call to follow Christ. That's the call to a new kingdom. See, the question we've all got to grapple with is, whose kingdom are you living for? God's placed you in His kingdom for His purposes, for His glory, and that's where life is.